This segment was for you, actually.
Okay.
Your fantasy guys.
Yeah.
Who are some of the guys you have for fantasy football?
Well, I'm gonna give some names, and I didn't get to get these particular players, but I'll say for the fantasy people who aren't really familiar with, exactly what that is. Basically, it's, you draft NFL players, you try to get as many points as you can with the players you pick up. So these are the players to look out for if your fantasy draft hasn't started yet. And I'll say Antonio Brown, obviously, because to me he's the best receiver in the game. He's the most consistent. He's going to be getting a plethora of passes. He's going to score touchdowns. The key in fantasy is score touchdowns because that's where you get most of your points from. Another guy I look at is Russell Wilson. I like trying to get dual threat quarterbacks for my fantasy team because they can either throw a touchdown, obviously, or they can run. Russell Wilson, another consistent quarterback. He plays again, obviously, very consistent week in and week out. You can expect a plethora of points with him. And when it comes to running back, that's probably besides the quarterback, that's probably a key position is the running back, and I'll just try to get the best running back or the most accomplished running back as I can. So look out for David Johnson, Ezekiel, Le'Veon Bell. They're going to get a lot of touches.
Let me say this about Russell Wilson. Another factor, he did lead his team in rushing last year. Am I correct?
He did.
Is that one of the reasons why you're putting him up there? Because I wouldn't say he's the best receiver. I know you know fantasy better than I know. Yes,
right.
Excuse me, best quarterback.
All right. I mean, but again, Russell Wilson, I think he's elite. I mean, you can have Aaron Rodgers, a Tom Brady, Russell Wilson again, like you mentioned, with him rushing as many rushing yards as he has. That is the reason why I picked him because he can get it done on the ground as well, and that just helps, with the points.
But looking at it, will he be a 4,000-yard guy though, Sean?
Overall,
4,000 yards passing.
Passing.
The receiving core isn't really the strongest in the world.
It's not, but I think he can get it done. 4,000 yards, it might be a challenge, but if anyone can do it, I do believe Russell Wilson can do it. You still have I think Doug Baldwin's a top 10 receiver. I believe he is. Now, Brandon Marshall, he was out most of the year last year. He's on the team. I think he can help as well. But those are probably the only. Well, you got Tyler Lockett, but he's not necessarily a true receiver. He's more of a gadget type of guy. But I think Russell Wilson, he can get it done. I think probably 3,800 yards, I'll say.
You didn't mention Ben Roethlisberger, who I'm high on this year, who has some of the best weapons, Juju Smith, right. Antonio Brown, a guy you mentioned, Le'Veon Bell. Why is that? Why don't you like more
Well,
fantasy?
I had some history with Big Ben. I'm not saying he's a terrible pickup, obviously, because I still do think he's a top 5, but my history with Big Ben is, again, I like more dual threat quarterbacks who can get it done through the air or on the ground. So Big Ben, he can run as well, but he could be inconsistent. Like last year, I feel sorry whoever had him. I think it was week 5 when they played against the Jacksonville Jaguars. He threw 5 interceptions, and that kills on fantasy. If you're throwing 5 interceptions,
absolutely,
it's negative points. And then he also gets hurt a lot. He tends to get hurt a few times. He's not really going to – he probably won't complete a full 16 games like this year. So that's why I wanted to get Big Ben on, like, say, my first 3 rounds. But, I mean, if I have to get him, I'll get him.
I'd rather have Cam Newton over Russell Wilson. I'll tell you that. Personally, wow. I feel like passing yards, they'll be just about equal. Cam Newton, even though I have my critique when it comes to him, Cam Newton will get more done on the ground when it comes to touchdowns. To me,
that's fair, but he also might turn over the ball as well. I mean, and
he'll throw more interceptions than Russell Wilson. I'll give you that.
Yeah. And it's ironic because I did Cam Newton was available in the 3rd round. I did end up drafting Cam Newton, so he is on my team.
Okay, talk to me a little bit about Deshaun Watson. How do you feel about Deshaun Watson coming off that ACL injury fantasy-wise?
And I have him as a name, too. I had him on my fantasy team last year. And coming in this year, it depends. I mean, obviously, it depends if he can stay healthy. I think, he's definitely been, in the rehab, and I think he should be. Well, he's been playing the preseason, so he is looking to start week 1. He'll definitely be a big contribution towards the Houston Texans this year. And the best is yet to come. He has tremendous upside. Again,
You're weary about him coming back from the injury. That's what it sounds like to me.
I'm a little worried about him coming back from the injury because I think he had an injury like that in college before.
Yes.
So, he is a dual threat. I keep saying that because he can run. He has a strong arm as well. But I'm a little weary.
He did lead the league in touchdown passes before he was hurt as a rookie. That's extremely impressive.
It is impressive.
Very young, so that's why the injuries I'm not too concerned on.
Right.
I think he'll bounce back. I'm a little bit more patient with him than I am with Andrew Luck.
Really?
Yes, just because he's a little bit younger.
Yeah.
I love what I've seen him in his first year, so a little bit patient with him. I like Deshaun Watson. Personally, I feel like his upside for next year, healthy in a weaker AFC conference than a Russell Wilson and a Cam Newton, he'll pass for more yards. That'll be my bold prediction. I think it's a good fantasy pickup, especially after the first couple of games, him just getting incorporated back.
He gave me 42 points last year in one game.
Yeah, last year, people probably didn't see that coming either, and he was definitely a fantasy stud.